Now let's move to Parliament. President Cyril Ramaphosa under fire this afternoon, facing questions on corruption. The President says it's disgusting that people have sought to benefit from critically ill people. Our reporter Lindsay Dentlinger joins me for more on this. Good evening to you, Lindsay. Now, you watched the entire Q&A session, which started at 2, and I think it wrapped only after 5. But let's start with the thing that most South Africans want to know about, which is what we're going to do about corruption. Of course, that was front and centre. What was his demeanour and what was his response to the issues of corruption?
Sally, so it's the first time we have the President in the National Assembly chamber since the lockdown began. He's answered questions before in the last term, but this is the first time he's in the House to do so. And you know he's come under fire quite a bit since the start of the lockdown, because Parliament, certainly from the opposition side, felt that he needed to be more available to answer questions related to decisions government is taking with regard to this pandemic. And so really top of mind and hitting the headlines in recent weeks is the issue related to corruption. The President saying today that figures being bandied about how much is at stake here are far, far from the truth, to quote him. He's saying tenders of about 11 billion rand were issued. And as you pointed out there, saying it's disgusting that people were looking to make what he said was a quick buck from the state, but that certainly South Africa wasn't unique in this position. All around the world, he says businesses have tried to benefit from personal protective equipment tenders, but the President saying that now was really the time to again tighten the systems, and saying that the public were well within their rights to be outraged, and that they were within their rights to demand answers to questions relating to corruption, and pledging, Sally, to provide these answers. Let's take a listen to his response to one of those questions on tender corruption in the House today.
Government is determined to ensure that all criminal acts related to our response to COVID-19 pandemic are uncovered, and that those responsible are held to account. And I must tell you that this is what our people want, this is what they expect, this is what they deserve, and this is what they demand. And we are going to live up to our people's expectations. We will make sure that all is let out to hang in public, because it is their money after all.
It is their money after all. Indeed it is. Well, the President also says corruption exposed by COVID-19 is ushering in a new era. How exactly does he explain this?
Well, Sally, we know the President is the eternal optimist. He was saying that even though Treasury did all it could to put measures in place to prevent this kind of corruption that has now been unearthed in recent weeks, that these measures were not enough. He concedes that. But he says that this is now the time to relook at government's tender process. He's not in favor of a closed tender process, suggesting rather that competitive bidding be the route the country goes towards, and also making use of more digital technology in the tender procurement system. So he's saying that this is really at a watershed moment for South Africa, time to turn the ship around, and it's exposed the faults in the system which government can now fix. Let's take a listen to the President again.
This initiative is unprecedented in our country's history, enabling members of the public to find detailed information about how public funds are being spent. We believe that this establishes an important precedent to future scrutiny of expenditure of this nature. In many ways, this is what I believe is a watershed moment that marks the start of a new era in transparency and accountability in the procurement of goods and services by public entities. The measures that we are taking will definitely lead to procurement reform that will ensure that we find solutions to the many procurement maladies, including corruption, as well as to ensure that government does not overpay for goods and services.
You know, while there are so many investigations into various tenders and that sort of thing, I think the big focus has been the redeployment of corruption-accused Zandile Gumede from Mayor of eThekwini to the KZN cabinet. He spoke specifically about her, but what did he say?
Sally, that's just it. Opposition party saying that he was going to talk about rooting out corruption, then it's got to start at home, and by home I mean the ANC. And so it was the DA's John Steenhuisen who used the opportunity on one of these questions to pose a supplementary question, and that being exactly on Zandile Gumede. But the president being very careful not to say too much about that issue, not to comment too much, rather putting the ball in the court of what he said were ANC structures. Sally, let's rather listen himself as to how he responded to John Steenhuisen's question relating to Zandile Gumede.
The matter is being discussed within the structures of the African National Congress. That matter, that has caused, yes, admittedly, everybody agrees it has caused quite a lot of disquiet, and the matter is being discussed within the structures of the African National Congress in a very democratic manner, and leave it to those structures to deal with the matter.
Well, thank you very much to Lindsay Dentlinger.